So, you can thank my wife for this video. Yeah, I told her Messi was coming to MLS, and she was like, oh, really? You gotta make a video about that. And I was like, yeah, I want to, but I really need to finish my new studio. And then she was like, no, Messi is the only soccer player in the world I can name off the top of my head. You need to make a video. And then I was like, okay, you're probably right. So this is not a normal signing, not even a normal DP signing. MLS as a whole, every team, they were all kind of in agreement that this needed to happen. So Messi is definitely getting some special treatment here. He's getting some of that Apple TV money, getting some Adidas money, maybe even another MLS team when he retires, a la David Beckham with Inter Miami. Whatever was reported, there's probably even more that Messi is getting that we don't even realize. On the surface, that might sound kind of ridiculous, right? Like, could you imagine if all of the NBA teams worked together to get LeBron to play in a certain city? That doesn't really seem fair now, does it? I get why some are peeved about this. I really do. But I have just 3 words I need to respond with. Dude, it's Messi. MLS ain't the NBA. Soccer is the 5th most popular team sport in this country. A distant 5th at that. I know, you can use certain metrics to argue it's above hockey, but for TV numbers of the American leagues, it's 5th. It's not collusion because everyone knew about it and agreed to it. But let's be honest. This deal, yeah, it's not totally fair. I will admit that. But guess what? I don't care. Because there are 3 guys in the world where you have to make an exception to try and get into your league no matter what. David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Lionel Messi. Those are the 3 most popular soccer players in the world, and every league would benefit from having them no matter what age. I wouldn't even include Neymar on this list. Maybe someday Mbappe or Haaland can get that popular, and I guess maybe you could include Christian Pulisic. Obviously, I'm not saying he's on the same level as those other guys, but maybe you can spin the whole American thing. Point is, the list of players you need to try to get into your league is small. And on that list, no one is bigger than Messi. Except when we're talking for middle-aged women. Then Beckham takes the cake. Oh, hey, by the way, without the Apple TV deal, Messi doesn't come. So if you're happy about Messi, you gotta stop bitching about Apple. I'm sorry, that's just the rules. But let's get to the meat and potatoes of this conversation. What does Messi coming mean for MLS? Well, short term, it's everything. This is the single biggest move MLS could have made. I saw somewhere that tickets for the Leagues Cup game in Miami is currently more expensive than NBA Finals tickets, which is batshit crazy. We don't even know if Messi's for sure going to be ready to play by the Leagues Cup. We're also already seeing it on social media. Inter Miami, a MLS team, now has more Instagram followers than anyone else in the MLB, NHL, and NFL, including America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Jesus Christ. We are going to see record ticket sales. We're going to see record jersey sales. And people like World Soccer Talk are still going to try and convince us that the sky is falling and that Apple's ready to pull out at any moment. It's going to be great. We are going to see a massive wave of new fans. And then, once Messi retires, a very large portion of those fans will immediately stop caring. Yeah, sorry guys, it's time to bring you back down to earth. We've seen this before. Star comes in, temporary fans care, star leaves, and suddenly the stadium isn't quite as full anymore. But that's okay, because over the long haul, it's still very, very much a net gain for the league. And in the end, there will still be more fans and more money than there was before. As for Messi's impact over the long term, well, worst case scenario, either Messi is injured the whole time or he just aggressively doesn't care. Don't think either of those will happen, but even so, MLS will still get a lot of exposure, causing a lot of other international star players to look into the league, and there will still be more fans than before. So if MLS doesn't do anything else with this, they're still coming out pretty well from this deal. But with all of this extra exposure, I really believe it is time for MLS to take the next step. We saw it with the Beckham deal and the introduction of the DP rule. It was a necessary change to help bring in more high-profile players. Now, in 2023, each team has 3 DP slots. I believe MLS should keep that number, but I also believe it is time to increase the salary cap. Increasing the DP slots, or just getting rid of the rule and getting rid of the salary cap altogether, that would be a terrible decision. I really believe you would run into the possibility of eliminating all sense of parity then. I don't want to see the same team win it every year, like we do in the Bundesliga. No salary cap means every big name goes to LA and all the scraps are for everyone else. It's not going to be pretty. MLS might be forced artificial parity, but that's better than nothing. However, we have seen it time and time again in the CONCACAF Champions League, now known as the Champions Cup. The top-end talent, the DPs if you will, they can compete with Liga MX. But many of the middle to low-end talent on an MLS roster simply cannot. I'm not saying an MLS team's bankroll is the only reason Mexico keeps kicking her ass in that tournament, but you also can't tell me that allowing teams to spend more money wouldn't help. Of course it would. MLS has been very careful about not making the same mistakes that the NASL did all those years back. Once the NASL let the Cosmos shatter the salary cap, no one else could keep up, and a lot of teams just stopped trying. MLS put all these hard rules in place to ensure that wouldn't happen again. And I think it was totally necessary. But now, with interest in this league about to explode again, now is the time to take off the training wheels. Keep the salary cap, but raise it dramatically. Because if MLS does raise the cap, and if they do some other things too, like loosen restrictions on international roster spots and raise the total number of senior roster spots, the soccer is going to get a lot better. And I think ultimately, Messi coming to MLS will spur this change. I think it's going to happen. And that's what I'm most excited about. Okay, so is this move going to make MLS a top 5 league in this world?
What?
No. But it will make it better, so we should still be a little happy. Is this move all of a sudden going to make MLS mainstream among every American? Also, no. Hey, I would love it to, but if we're being honest with ourselves, how long do you think sports talk radio hosts are going to talk about this on air? Probably, on average, about 15 seconds before they return to talking about the NFL and NBA. Hey, let's face it, Messi is a god on the field, but he's not going to be on every talk show. He's just not that kind of guy. His initial impact is going to be more on the field than off the field.
You sure about that?
Whereas with David Beckham, I would argue it was the opposite. Which is kind of crazy to say out loud, considering they're going to sell a lot of Messi jerseys. But hopefully, you guys know what I mean. MLS becoming a top league in this country, that kind of change is going to take years and years and years to happen. There's a lot of people in this country who still don't give a shit about soccer and don't even realize the significance of this move. But one day, probably when I'm old and broken down, I'll realize that MLS is no longer just a niche league, that people will mention it in the same light as other pro leagues in this country. And for many new fans, their fandom will begin by watching the magical Lionel Messi tear it up on a cold, rainy night in Cincinnati.